When you think of genres that could feature the characters from Star Wars, you'll most likely think of action adventures like The Force Unleashed or Jedi Survivor. You might think of a shooter like Dark Forces or Battlefront. Maybe one of the excellent flight simulators of the 1990s. Maybe you're thinking of the Old Republic RPGs, potentially the 16-bit console era platformers, or that first on-rails Atari vector graphics classic. Hell, you might even have Super Bombad Racing spring to your mind if you're in the midst of a deep fever or some sort of fit. What you probably wouldn't be thinking though is a puzzle game set in a toy factory. Yes, no space adventuring, no daring do. This isn't what we call pod racing. 9 to 5, dead-end, manual labour jobbery is what sci-fi space operas are all about, correct? And yet, that is the premise of this early 1990s historical curio, a LucasArts effort that finds you as a multifaceted handyman or handy-woman running your arse off for the man, making action figures of all your favourite original trilogy characters, provided your favourite original trilogy characters aren't someone like Reese or Dr. Evazan. They are my favourite characters. Now, you might remember these toys as being made by Kenner back in the 80s, but in this case the company involved is Industrial Might and Logic, which is pretty obviously a clever play on words based upon LucasArts' in-house technical special effects whizzes Industrial Light and Magic. And that's probably a good thing because it avoids LucasArts getting a strongly written letter from Kenner accusing them of harsh slave-like working conditions. George will wear the slave-driving accusations with pride, but he doesn't want any litigious behaviour coming and landing on his doorstep with a clump. You play the role of Fred or Fiona Fixit, no relation to Fix-It Felix from Wreck-It Ralph, sadly. LucasArts clearly here are anticipating their 2011 acquisition and all the equality sermonising that goes with an amalgamation with Disney. You are charged with manufacturing all the Star Wars, Indiana Jones and Maniac Mansion figurines to appease the whining early 90s children. No Willow or Howard the Duck figurines though. I'd buy a Howard the Duck toy, but you can keep your Annie Lannis from Zach McCracken Tar. Oh, and Fred and Fiona work different shifts clearly, and you're the only person in the entire production team. Oh, and you're the only mechanic. Ah, yeah, and the machine, affectionately called the Beast, is prone to breaking a lot. Oh, and there are nasty lawyers, although nasty from whose perspective? They're probably just looking out for Fred and Fiona under these terrible working conditions. Oh, and there are furry little critters scuttling about who have a hatred of Star Wars, matched only by YouTubers who give Kathleen Kennedy red eyes in their thumbnails. Night Shift was the brainchild of attention to detail, 5 graduates of Birmingham University who had the idea of making a game called Mr. Fix-It. It was pitched to LucasArts, who took them up on the idea, but also gave them permission to use the stars of some of the most beloved media of the 1980s, and Zach McCracken. Attention to Detail went on to work with LucasArts on Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the action game. But then they left LucasArts' breast to go and work on the Jaguar, and in fact they were responsible for one of the better-known launch titles, that being Cybermorph. Where did you learn to fly? They also did the 2 Olympics games for Sydney and Salt Lake that were at the turn of the millennium. There's been a lot of love poured onto this by them and LucasArts in what is quite a niche little title, really. It's commendable. I mean, look at the manual. It's actually an employee's handbook. And it's something that you may find yourself dipping into quite a lot as you try and get your head around the many moving parts of the Beast machine. You see, the Beast in Night Shift is a 100-foot tall machine that requires you to nurture it to get it to give you your C3POs. You'll start off pedaling like Billy-O to get the Beast enough juice in which to power it. Then you'll have to leap up to the top deck and trigger control vats and various conveyor belts via valves and switches. Once everything's chugging away, out come the toys. Be sure that you've got the right heads on the right bodies and that they're assembled in the correct order. You may want to make Indiana Jones wearing a Darth Vader helmet, but children won't like that, and neither will your menacing boss. Better make sure you match the right colour scheme, else those toys will be on the scrap heap, much like your prospects of continued employment. This is all done against a strict time limit, And when that's finished, that'll be the point your figurines will be checked and the boss will determine whether or not to get you into next week's shift pattern or whether you can join the growing ranks of unemployed people in broken Britain. Of course, and in a rare show of meritocracy from your employers, you may well get yourself a points bonus or a raise if you make more than your quota. Night shift, like most new jobs, will unquestionably give you imposter syndrome upon your first play. Your first day on the job realistically leaves you bewildered, feeling undertrained and utterly confused by all the new things you need to learn. At least in your first shift, they give you plenty of time to get yourself acquainted with the contraption, as you only have to make a handful of stormtroopers. The toy production starts from the top, from where the resins are made, and then works its way down to where the toys are moulded, then painted, then assembled, and then placed in boxes. All of these various parts need configuring and have to be maintained, otherwise the nation's children's Christmases will be as dismal as those featured in seasonal soap opera specials. Your tool belt comes into play a lot more in the later shifts, with the umbrella and balloon being used to get you to the higher and lower parts of the beast much quicker. The vacuum cleaner will be used to dispose of the troublesome rodents, and the Venus flytrap disposes of those evil human rights lawyers determined to give you paid overtime and a few R&R hours with your family and loved ones. Anyway, it's not murder if a plant kills him, is it? Keep the machine running well, top up the electricity with regular sessions on the cycle, and make sure that production is running efficiently and George Lucas can have extra coins poured into his money bath. This game is truly the ultimate in late-stage capitalist ideals. No doubt a game thoroughly enjoyed by Jacob Rees-Mogg on his Victorian steam-powered GX4000 as he rests his feet on a street urchin. Well, not no doubt, but some doubt. There is a fruit-based password system, thankfully, as some of your progress will come down not just to your savvy and iron will, but glorious amounts of blind luck too. And you may not fancy tackling that third shift again. As previously mentioned, with that hefty employees manual, the scale of the beast and the ticking timer, this is not an easy game to get into. And as a job, it's as hectic as a COVID-era nurse in A&E. She would stop and applaud you should you get through the last shift. It takes time to get familiar not only with every valve and switch, but which parts of the machine are safe to jump on, and also the quickest routes up its structure. Do not expect to make quick progress through it. You'll be irritated, flustered and aggy at times, but once it all comes together, it is as satisfying as a job well done. You'll be drenched in the sweat of the factory worker you're controlling, but you'll be filled with corporate pride at all those R2-D2s being sent to toy shelves. It's graphically sharp, and while the alert sounds of the hulking machinations are jarringly searing at times, it adds to the panicked atmosphere. With that said, it is not a game for everyone, and I dare say that it has just as many detractors as fans, as we're about to discover in the reviews. It's for the same sort of tasker-juggling player who enjoyed the later levels of Lemmings or Krusty's Funhouse. But I'd argue it is not for those who like to unwind while playing games. This will get you pent up. Whether you like it or not though, you can't deny its creativeness. And in this case, you can consider me a fully paid up slave to the corporate machine. Step on me, daddy billionaire. Crash Magazine adored being George Lucas's doormat too. They said this of the title in the July 1991 edition. The first few levels are simple to complete, but as you go on, more and more goes wrong with the beast. It's enough to send you slightly mad. Bibble bibble. It's great fun to run up and down the beast fixing all the faults that crop up, but it's frustrating when a million things go wrong, usually all at once. They gave it a stonking 96%. Zap reviewed the Amiga version in January of 1991. This is one of the most compulsive games I've played in ages. They also said that there seems to be something going wrong on the production line most of the time, so seeing properly finished dolls emerge is very satisfying, while the muddled up rejects are often quite amusing, like C-3PO's head on R2-D2's body. It's all marvellously hectic fun, with later levels adding even more machinery to juggle with. It was an 89% from them. In the interest of balance though, but not much of it as I'm only going to give you a single negative review, we've got this 47 out of 100 score from the game's budget re-release in 1993, courtesy of Atari ST User. Why beat about the bush? Not to put too fine a point on it, Night Shift is unbearably slow to load and annoying to play. It's badly designed and documented, and is ultimately dull. Perhaps there is an enjoyable game lurking beneath the off-putting facade, but to be honest, I was turned off from playing it long before I found out. And that's Night Shift. And from getting done up the wrong and by the man, to trying to do dirty things with Ham, as we play an Atari game based on an early 80s sex comedy. Porkies. Saints preserve us. Like, subscribe, and K thanks, bye.